This conference will now be recorded.
I am ready.
Ready? Call the meeting of the May 17th meeting of APC to order. Mr. Burns, would you call the roll, please?
Jackson Bogan. Here. Larry Leverance.
Here.
Carla Snodgrass. Gary Schroeder.
Here.
Jerry Reynolds.
Here.
Greg Jones. Here. Bod Metzger. Here. Diana Looper. Here. Vicki Pearl. Here. Michelle Dennis. Michelle Dennis. Tom Murtaugh. Tom Murtaugh. Perry Brown.
Here.
Tracy Brown. Tracy Brown. Jason Tomkowski.
Here.
Lisa Dullum. Here. Kathy Parker. Here. Jody Hamilton.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you, sir. Briefing session. Thank you. Approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from the April 19th, 2023 public hearing as submitted.
A second.
Any discussion, corrections? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. New business. Mr. Burns.
All right. We had an administrative action that was taken by the presiding officer that essentially moves this body forward without having to wait. So when you have a meeting that does not occur because there's no items on the agenda, there are still things that need to be determined or found, and those are things that you will find on your executive committee agenda. Those are essentially the things that needed to occur, yet because there were no other agenda items other than these administrative matters, the meeting was not held. As a result, in order to have belt and suspenders, I have requested that the presiding officer, anytime this happens, as it did back on May 2nd, that he takes an administrative action, that this body be aware of it and ratify it. A ratification is nothing more than a vote that says, yes, we agree what was done. And so the record would then reflect for all time that this body looked at the administrative actions that were taken by your presiding officer and have approved them by ratification. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to address those. And I believe, and I'm going to state this, and I'll be corrected by staff if I misspeak, but I believe this is only going to occur really when we have a meeting that does not occur because there aren't other agenda items. Would you agree with that?
Yes, that's correct.
So it'll happen here and there, not that often, but that's why we're doing it. Otherwise, what you have to do is you have to continue everything until the next meeting, which, at least to me, is not, it's not promoting anybody's interest, not the public, certainly not the body. You increase your chances of forgetting something, so I think this is the best method to do it. So I would suggest a motion to ratify those actions as identified on the agenda be taken.
Mr. Schroeder.
I move to ratify the administrative action that occurred on May 2nd, 2023 that approved the May APC and ABZA public hearing agendas, the determination of variances, and the April budget report.
A second.
Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay, our public hearing, let me read a statement of our procedures. For those of you unfamiliar with our procedures, the Commission would like you to know the following. When we hear requests to subdivide land, we are only concerned as to whether the actual drawing showing the division into lots meets the technical standards of our ordinance. The question of appropriateness has already been determined. Anyone wishing to make comments or provide us with information regarding any subdivision petitions will be given the opportunity to do so. When we are hearing a request for a change in zoning, we're trying to determine if the new zone being requested and the uses allowed in that zone are appropriate to that property and supported by the comprehensive plan. With each case being heard, our staff will present its report. Then the person requesting the rezone will be given an opportunity to speak. Following that, those of you wishing to speak in favor of the rezone will be recognized, and those of you who wish to oppose it will have a turn. This will be your only time to speak. The person requesting the action will be allowed a rebuttal. Plan Commission members will then ask questions and finally vote. Please limit your statements to no more than 5 minutes. We ask that you do not repeat what others before you have already said. We're a 17-member body, and a majority of 17 is 9. Regardless of how many commissioners are actually present, at least 9 votes in favor or 9 votes against are required for our action to be official. If fewer than 9 of us agree to either approve or disapprove an action, that case must be heard again the next month. Our vote on a request to subdivide is final. Our vote on a request to rezone serves as a recommendation to the appropriate City Council, Town Council, or County Commissioners, who must ultimately decide on changes in zoning. When addressing the Commission, please state your name and address for the record. Cell phones must be turned off while the meeting is in session. If you need to make a call, please step out of the room before using your phone. All exhibits presented to the Commission become the property of the Commission.
I move that there be incorporated into the public hearing portion of each application to be heard this evening and to become part of the evidence at such hearing, the Unified Zoning Ordinance, the Unified Subdivision Ordinance, the Comprehensive Plan, the bylaws of the Area Plan Commission, the application, and all documents filed therewith, the staff report and recommendations on the applications to be heard this evening, and responses from checkpoint agencies.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I move to hear and vote on Resolution 2023-04, West Lafayette Parks and Open Space Plan.
Okay, let me back up here. All right, thank you. Well, this project was an awful lot of fun, I have to say. In October 2021, City Council had approved a resolution authorizing APC to, as we quote in our staff report, study parks and open spaces for sustainable growth of the West Lafayette Park system. The West Side staff, the Park Department folks, and the other city staff basically encouraged us to really kind of dream big and think big. A lot of park planning, certainly the ones that we've done over the years, this agency, and then our localities themselves, a lot of it's our maintenance plans, how to possibly repurpose existing facilities, that sort of thing. But not necessarily thinking about where else could we go with this as our community grows. And so since West Lafayette had already done extensive planning work dealing with their existing facilities and then actually speculating on some new locations and had done a lot of heavy public input, we sort of saw this effort as kind of almost being an addendum to what they've already done as opposed to redoing everything they've already accomplished. So in early spring of last year, we had created sort of a framework for how we wanted the document to probably be arranged. And then the parks, the city staff folks had assembled kind of a group of stakeholders from Niches Trust to Purdue University to Tippecanoe Parks, folks that are sort of in the mix with respect to parks and open spaces, Wabash River Enhancement Corporation, to sort of hear us out. You know, here's our pitch, here's what we're thinking, what do you think, is this going in the right direction? And they sort of agreed with what we were planning on doing, and I wanted to try to bring in elements that they had been working on as well, since we're kind of going outside of the West Lafayette city borders. So anyway, very brief, the plan obviously is on our website. We have a link to it there. I'd be happy to answer any questions about it, but I've just included sort of the grand plan map for it, and which shows this element of an inner and outer green belt of areas that are interconnected with parks and then paved and natural trails, sort of building on the existing system we have and then expanding it outwards. And so it was actually the city staff that came up with sort of the inner green belt idea that's within the city limits, and that's kind of that black dashed line there. And so when we're considering the city's future growth, we said, well, what if we went, just an outer belt and then tried to interconnect the two so that no matter where you are in the city, you're not too far from a facility. And we broke down park facilities into very simplistic terms. It's either sort of an active park space or it's a passive one. Passive ones are more natural, conservation areas, that sort of thing. Active parks obviously could be programmed very intensely, like the West Lafayette Rec Center, or more simply with a dog park or ball fields, that sort of thing. Or there could be parks that have elements of both. Like Happy Hollow Park's a good example of that. Even Cumberland Park has elements of that as well. So we're sort of working off what's already out there and then decided to look for future areas. And we really picked sort of the lowest hanging fruit sites. A lot of these are floodplain. Most of them are floodplain environments, super steep sloped environments, wetland environments, areas that you really already can't build in. And areas that already have some sort of natural beauty to them and might be worthy of conservation or repurposing as a partial park space. And so that's really what developed. And then in terms of the yellow lines connecting them all, those are hard trail, hard paved paths, normally within rights of way. So these are trails along on major roads or minor roads, or even sidewalks. And then to sort of mix things up, we also presented kind of some concepts for some natural trail environments that kind of crisscross through some of these natural environments so that you can kind of pass through them. And a lot of these, if these were ever pursued, they would likely be acquired via easement, because you're just looking at a very small little space to be able to traverse through. But in order to try to allow for multiple ways to kind of go through the city and interconnect the system, whether on a paved trail or natural trail. And we try to also provide some balance between active and natural or active and passive recreational facilities. There's obviously a need for more ball fields and tennis courts and basketball, et cetera, along with preserving natural environments that people can enter and enjoy. So anyway, again, I can answer any more questions about the details of the plan, but we basically wrapped things up by the fall and then had a draft that we presented to our stakeholder group, and then they kind of made some last-minute adjustments they thought were necessary, and then we delivered it to the Parks Board at the end of the year, and then they formally heard us in February of this year, and then asked us to come back and re-present it again in March. And it was at that meeting that they unanimously recommended approval. And so this would be a comprehensive plan amendment. So it is just a policy document, but it's meant to provide some guidance and also hopefully some inspiration for where the West Side Park system might grow and in what direction it could grow. And And to that end, a lot of the work that we've done here is actually now being kind of folded into the township's planning effort that we're doing in Wabash and Tippecanoe, as you know, this park plan kind of traverses both of those areas. And so we've sort of taken these ideas and are kind of going further out. So anyway, I'd be happy to answer any questions, otherwise recommending approval.
Thank you, Ryan. Anyone in the audience wishing to comment on this petition?
My name's Darren Sorensen. I live in West Lafayette, Shrewsbury Drive. And this is the first time I've heard this. I mean, and I'm a developer in this county. And some of the things that they're asking and they're wanting you to approve for the comprehensive plan is other, private people's property, and I don't think that they've had a chance to put their 2 cents in on this plan, and I'd like to see that continued until we get some more input from the people that are actually going to be affected by this, the property owners. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Questions from the board?
I would second what Darren's saying. I guess now that I'm sitting here looking at this is right and around where I live, and I have not seen or heard one thing about it. And so upon looking at this and knowing how narrow the roads are currently, I'm curious how this, I know it's a futuristic thing, but still, has anybody that lives out in this area even been talked to or discussed? Or I guess I'm curious what group outside of maybe the city of West Lafayette has even heard about this. And I was at the Wabash Township planning meetings.
Yeah, well, it was advertised and presented to the Parks Board. That's ultimately who we were responding to for the city of West Lafayette, and so we did do 2 public hearings at that point. So, and there had been extensive public outreach within the city for their park planning effort as well, and so that was, like I said, we didn't want to replicate what they had already done, so that's kind of what we proceeded from.
Quick question to Mr. Sorensen's point. Were any private property owners affected by this contacted or notified or engaged, I should say?
Not individually, in terms of like a mass mailing or anything like that, no.
I'll elaborate on that. I know this seems to be working. I can speak pretty loud. So if they haven't been notified, there's a chance that their piece of land could now be deemed park, and they are not aware of that, to make a rebuttal, and then this becomes part of the, becomes part of the comprehensive plan, which then staff would thereby make their decisions off of going forward? Am I somewhat
In terms of
understand?
policy, right. Yeah, it's not, this isn't zoning, and so.
Right.
What rights they have on their currently zoned land stays, for sure.
But if it becomes part of the comprehensive plan and somebody wants to come and take their piece of land and make it R3, if it is in the park area, staff would need to follow the comprehensive plan and thereby deny that? Am I understanding that a little bit?
Yeah, we'd recommend it, and then we'd probably reach out to the locality and say, this is sort of your opportunity to kind of put your money down. Like, is this, do you want this space or not? You know, we kind of targeted this space as appropriate based on the criteria we developed and that you agreed to. And then that's where the rubber hits the road, is the locality is then contacted via its staff, and they get to make a decision. And they can use the current subdivision ordinance park reservation system, which has not been used very often. It's probably new to most of you, but it's been on the books for a long time. And that's when the locality can reserve for the period of 5 years land that they're interested in acquiring, and they have to find a way to pay for it to compensate the owner for that. And so that's the current ordinance, if the locality so chooses to do so. So ultimately, so the staff would obviously have to poll their elected officials to determine if this is in in this instance, the city's interests at this time, and they're willing to dedicate their resources to doing a deal with the owner. And hopefully a deal could be struck, But this isn't a taking. This isn't eminent domain we're talking about, so let's not get ahead of ourselves.
If I could follow up on Jackson's question, so I understood not eminent domain, but would possibly affect an owner's right to develop the property, or at least add a layer of complication if it's inside a park plan when it goes before this board or a city council?
Legally, if you follow the subdivision ordinance, only if the locality makes use of the parkland reservation system. If they ask for that at the preliminary stage of the subdivision, then they do have a right to have that reserved and then essentially come up with the money. And then if they don't, or a deal can't be struck within that 5-year time frame, then the reservation ceases. And so that's what's currently in the ordinance. But again, to my knowledge and to the knowledge of people that have worked here a long time, that ordinance has never been triggered. So there's obviously not much interest in it from the localities to pursue it. So past that, we're just talking about a straight deal. Locality interested in either acquiring land or an easement and trying to work with the owner to see if they can come to an arrangement. So,
Yeah, question, and maybe for council, does this plan invoke the subdivision ordinance reservation plan, or what is the procedure for them to invoke a 5-year reservation?
It's up to the
That's done
locality.
by the municipality.
And what's the
Not
procedure?
this group.
Not this group. So
Right.
they can do that. At what body would that, how would that?
If it's in the county parks
County
department.
park.
If it's in the
City
city,
park.
then the city, parks department.
Okay.
So it's kind of their discretion.
So what is the procedure for them to do that?
It's at the sketch plan stage when a subdivision is being scrutinized. That's when these big picture items are brought to the table it's park reservations, or if there's natural. There's a few clauses in there concerning special natural areas or areas of historic interest. There's varying degrees of things that could be reserved and requested for reservation, and so that's where it would take place.
So you just write a memo or verbally say we want to
It would be
reserve
part of
this?
kind of the comments that the checkpoints, and them being one of them, could bring, and so similar to, say you're doing a major subdivision, it's residential, and the Parks Department's interested in having some tot lots in there, and they want to run them, and so at that sketch plan says, hey, these would be ideal spot. You kind of work it out. It's almost like a negotiation to a certain extent with the developer. If the locality is adamant about pursuing this and is willing to put money on the table for it, so.
Okay, so this is a question maybe more for the Parks Department, because I think down at the bottom, the third is reviewing existing and proposed tools for the acquisition of these sites as permitted by Indiana code. Now, that's kind of outside of ours. I'm just wondering if the Parks Department has put together a budget or a plan and has a budget to acquire any of these lands?
Absolutely not. This is dreaming. This document is aspirational. And you could talk to every single one of our parks departments. They'll say we have no money for any of this. We barely have enough money to maintain what we have. So, but West Lafayette's interest was trying to come up with a vision for something greater than what they have right now. And so they didn't want us necessarily bounded by the finances to a certain extent. So it's safe to say none of the finances are there to acquire any of this. and probably won't be in the near future, But if there's support politically, if there's support from the residents, from the taxpayers, from the owners for these sorts of concepts or any of these concepts, those ideas could be brought to bear to the elected officials. Say, hey, we really think this is a great idea, this thing, whatever it is, trail, path, whatever it happens to be. And, you city council person, whomever, mayor, we should make this a priority for the city, and so to that end, let the negotiations begin to a certain extent. Try to reach out to folks, try to see if you can, make a deal. Like I said, most of these sites are undevelopable. Now there may be people that just want to, have cherished wooded land. That's all theirs. That I get that. But in terms of the development community, a lot of these sites are already kind of out of bounds. And that's why we picked them, because they're, like I said, lower hanging fruit. And so, most of our parks are already in floodplains.
Ryan, if a piece of property is developed, does it stay within the comprehensive plan as a possible park? Or what happens?
Until the plan's amended to clean it up. Yeah, we have provisions in some of our more recent plans to kind of routinely go through them and amend them where they're out of date. And so that does happen from time to time. It's not automatic. But yeah, we have plenty of examples, especially in our neighborhood plans in the cities, where things didn't go according to plan, and something's in the ground now that completely breaks with the plan. And it's the zoning that's the law. The policy is a suggestion. That's the difference. So, for example, the New Chauncey neighborhood had a proposed boundary for a historic district that does not match the legal boundary of the local historic district in New Chauncey, because the local historic district was approved after the plan, and for some reason they didn't look at it, or they ignored it because it's a policy. They didn't have to follow it, and city council didn't. They said, well, we think this should be the boundary, and that's what you adopted as council, and that's what's law. And at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. So
I think with all these questions that have been raised and property owners not contacted or had an opportunity to give input, just for discussion purposes, I'd move that we continue this to the ordinance committee. And I don't know if staff can contact, or the Parks Department contact the owners and let them know what's going on and maybe hear their input. I know we heard from Mr. Sorensen, didn't know anything about it, so that would be my motion, to try to involve the property owners and maybe air out a little bit more of this. So I move that we continue this to the ordinance committee for further discussion.
I second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any comments, questions?
I think we should.
Okay. We'll do a roll call vote.
And if I may have an aye or a nay. Jackson Bogan,
Aye.
Larry Leverins,
Aye.
Carla Snodgrass, Gary Schroeder,
Aye.
Jerry Reynolds,
Aye.
Greg Jones, Bob Metzger, Diana Looper, Vicki Pearl, Perry Brown, Jason Domkowski,
Aye.
Lisa Dullum, Kathy Parker, Jody Hamilton.
Aye.
The ayes have it. There were 12, and let's see here, 12 to 2. 12 to 2, thank you, ayes have it.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. This item will be put on the June Ordinance and Bylaws Committee agenda. Thank you.
Ready?
Yes.
I move to hear and vote on S 5123, Arbor Chase, Section 6, Phase 2, Major Preliminary.
Good evening, David Hiddle with the Area Plan Commission. This is a major preliminary plat petition. You heard it partially last month, and it is back for rehearing today. This is a lot that is kind of bridging development to the north and to the south. To the south, you have the existing Arbor Chase subdivision, and to the north, you have Lauren Lakes. It is a 40-acre lot, approximately, and currently zoned R1, as it would need to be for subdivision development. That's an aerial photograph, so you can see it's about half wooded and half farmed. It would gain access. You can see from the south, the road is Millington Trail, which curls up into the south end of it, and that road would continue northward and connect to Demery Way. That would be the primary road through the development, and then there'd be 3 east-west roads that would shoot through it as well. You have the plat in a couple different segments in your packet. It was submitted for last month's petition review and has not been changed. Nothing new has been added or amended to the file. Staff's recommendation remains as it did. We are recommending approval subject to the usual conditions that are included in the staff report. The petitioner's counsel did indicate a desire to speak to the Public Works Director of West Lafayette during the time between last month's hearing and tonight's. We spoke with Mr. Anderson as well. He indicated that they may want to bond rather than build for a portion of one of the streets, the street that is named Street 3 in the plat, which is kind of a standard request, and we have no objection to that. But like I said, we are recommending approval subject to the conditions that are indicated in the staff report, and would answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Does the petitioner or petitioner's representative like to make a presentation?
Good evening, Kevin Riley with Riley, Teeter and Schreier representing the petitioner. We will comply with the conditions and concur with staff's recommendation, and did just want to clarify that the bonding would only apply to the approximately 180 square feet of road that is not being built at this time. Is that the Street 3 that you were talking about?
Right. Yeah, just bond it or build it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Does any member of the audience wish to make a comment on this petition? Any questions from the commission? Okay. You have a white ballot with bonding.
Yes, sir. Here you go, man.
Diane? One more.
You're too clear.
Thank you.
Ballots cast, all 14 for approval, for conditional approval rather, and also indicating that the petitioner may post bond.
Thank you.
I move to hear and vote on Z 2876, Series Solutions Cooperative Incorporated, AA to I3.
David Hiddle again with the Area Plan Commission. This is a rezoning case requesting a rezone from AA, which is select agricultural, the indicator for prime farmland as far as the zoning district, I3, which is our heavy industrial classification. You can see the site here. This is in the far south central portion of the county. It is at the intersection of 28 West and the railroad. It's a little bit east of 125 West. property adjoins, to the east there, you can see that there's already the agricultural gas and fuel storage facility. Petitioner owns that and is looking to expand this, to expand it to the west. It is a 4.72 acre lot. Initially, they were requesting a rezone of 10 acres, but we're directed by our comprehensive plan to protect agricultural farmland, especially select agricultural, so we just queried as to whether or not the full 10 acres was necessary. They said they could get what they needed done in 4+ acres, so they reduced the size of their zoning request to what it is currently. It's not agricultural as a use, but it certainly serves agricultural uses, and is going to be located in an intersection of a state road and a railroad where it makes plenty of sense. So staff is supportive of this request and would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Does the petitioner or his or her representative wish to make a presentation?
Yes, thank you. Chris Shellman of Goodwin Law, 250 Main Street, here on behalf of petitioner Series Solutions. As you may know, Series Solutions provides agricultural supplies such as fertilizers, fuel, and other services to local area farmers. The site, as the staff mentioned, was originally a fertilizer plant, and this use just carries over. The actual intent of this expansion is not to inherently, at least immediately, increase the size of the existing facility, but rather allow for the construction of a new office and maintenance garage to service their existing fleet of fuel vehicles. I agree with the staff report, appreciate their help in getting to this point, and ultimately request your recommendation of approval and be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Shulman. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? Any questions from the commission? You have a yellow ballot.
We have a unanimous ballot for approval.
Thank you.
I move to hear and vote on Z 2879 SHN Holdings LLC, 332 Brown Street, PD, CBW to PDNR.
Okay. All right. Moving into West Lafayette's downtown riverfront area. On Brown Street, the site of an existing, now abandoned PEFQ ATM branch location. It's obviously Levy Plaza shopping areas to the north, and then their private driveway into their parking lot is to the east. To the west is essentially another driveway entrance into the Levy Plaza area. Then beyond that is the surface parking lot that serves Wabash Landing, primarily the movie theaters. So our proposal, it fits in really nicely into the site, especially relative to the future kind of Levy street grid concept from the West Lafayette downtown plan. It's kind of positioned in a spot where it's not really near any of the existing streets, so it's a fairly easy little infill site. It's only about an acre. But the proposal is a very innovative hotel concept where the garage is integrated into the building, and the building essentially wraps the garage. So it's an extremely efficient use of 1 acre of land. It's a 7-story hotel, 149 rooms with 147 space garage. The design itself, we've got, main entrances off of Brown and kind of the main drop-off area, fairly upgraded streetscape for its Brown Street frontage. The project is sort of positioned so that if in the future depending on where the Levy Street grid ends up, they could potentially have another street frontage or something nearby. The building's sort of designed sensitively to that possibility. And so it has a nice, strong southeast corner element to it, which also incorporates, I believe at the 5th floor, an outdoor kind of patio area that comes off of the main amenity spaces for the hotel, a bistro and meeting spaces and other things that are up at that level. So it's very, very urban in character and extremely appropriate for this neighborhood. Fits perfectly with a lot of the policy directives of the downtown plan. And so we are recommending approval with the kind of mostly standard conditions, actually pretty much all standard conditions for plan developments. We have to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ryan.
I think that's it, yeah.
Does the petitioner or petitioner's representative wish to make a presentation?
Thank you, Kevin Riley with Riley, Teeter and Schreier representing the petitioner. I'll be brief. I don't want to rehash what Ryan said. He did a good job of kind of recapping the project. We are going to be redeveloping an underutilized site. This is going to be a welcome addition to the levee, we believe. We agree with the staff's report, and we believe this has met all the requirements of the ordinance. Request your approval, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Questions from the commission? You have a yellow ballot.
No? Oh, okay. You're welcome to it anytime. Unanimous ballot recommending approval.
Thank you, Ryan.
I move to hear and vote on Z 2880 Don Kohler, R1U to NBU.
I second.
Okay, petitioner's property is located in the town of Dayton. It's 2.2 acres on the west side of Dayton Road. State Road 38 or Walnut Street is just a little ways to the north. The southern border is the railroad track that runs through Dayton. You can see the property is currently zoned R1U, but property to the north is NBU, to the south it's NB, and to the east it's general business. Here's a look at the aerial photograph and a closer look. There is an existing house that was damaged by a fire. Petitioner has plans to raise that house. I'm not sure if that's been done yet or not, but that is the plan. So, this property was zoned commercially until 1998. Whenever NUSA was adopted, they rezoned all of Dayton, and I think probably because it had a house, it got residential zoning. Of course, now that house on site is going to be raised, so there won't be a residence there anymore. It does have commercial zoning on 3 sides. And also, the distinctly Dayton town plan that's pending actually shows a commercial future for this site. So, for all of those reasons I just outlined, staff is recommending approval of this rezone request.
Thank you, Kathy. Does the petitioner or petitioner's representative wish to make a presentation? Don't we have to?
It's here.
Hmm?
It's present.
Okay.
Presentation.
All right. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone, any questions from the board? Do you have a yellow ballot?
The unanimous ballot recommending approval.
Thank you, Ryan.
I move to hear and vote on Z 2884, Van Roy Properties Incorporated, Russ Seiler, The Uplands at Park East PD, GB to PDRS.
All right. We're on Lafayette's east side. This is Park East Boulevard, just south of the Walmart shopping area. This is actually one of the last, I think, kind of undeveloped tracks with direct frontage on Park East Boulevard, certainly something of this size. I'll kind of hang on this slide for a second. This site actually has some wetlands within it that one of the main reasons we went plan development was to try to design a project appropriately around these areas and also incorporate them into the project so that they actually have a sort of a part to play. And so this main depression here is one of them. And then actually all this scrubby woodland is actually not part of the wetland area, but this southern area is. And so our site plan is sensitive to that. Obviously we have residential, we have duplex subdivision to the west, and then we have this senior living facility to the south, and then to the east is undeveloped. Of course we have Walmart to the north. So project here incorporates those wetland areas into its design, preserving them and essentially highlighting them as part of the project's amenities spaces. There's a dog park, a private dog park for the residents being located adjacent to one of the wetland areas. The clubhouse is up front. We made sure there's a extensive interconnected sidewalk network within the facility that would connect directly onto the existing sidewalk that's out on Park East. Obviously, a lot of residents will have the convenience of walking to the store, and so we wanted to make sure that that path is not a cow path, an actual path that connects them to that. Obviously, there is a drainage facility north of the site dividing the two, so there's a little bit of a separation there. Not many folks are going to go that way. So the site was designed sensitively to accomplish that. And we essentially sort of stubbed the back end of the property. The future of what's going on east of this site is pretty open-ended. Obviously, the city has big plans for some major infrastructure, drainage and road facilities, and that's evolving. And so this site may have a part to play and potentially may get a back door into its site, which I think certainly would be probably appreciated by emergency services, having other ways in, that sort of thing. So for now, we're kind of sticking with this, but it's 312 units, 585 parking spaces or so scattered in between surface lots, internal garages that are internal to the building themselves, and then some actually detached garages. You'll kind of see some of these detached buildings on the site plan as well. And so 3-story profiles and accompanying clubhouse area. So in all, staff believes this meets a major, in a suburban environment, major housing policy of locating residential density near major activity centers. This one's a no-brainer. It's right next to Walmart. And so it provides, I think, a nice healthy mix of uses along Park East. Park East is largely sort of non-residential and institutional, certainly with the elder care facilities and senior living facilities. But it's also highly residential on the east side as well. So it's a very interesting and diverse mix, and we think this is, it fits well with that context. So we are recommending approval with the kind of standard conditions. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ryan. Does the petitioner or petitioner's representative wish to make a presentation?
Good evening, Kevin Riley with Riley, Teeter and Schreier, representing the petitioner. We agree with Ryan's summary of the project, and we agree with the staff report. I think this is going to add some much-needed housing to the area. We think that the plan or the proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets all the requirements of the ordinance. I request your approval and happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition?
My name is Nicholas Esposito. I live at 8 Kettle Circle in Lafayette, 47905. I got a certified letter about this development. I live in Cascada, village of Cascada. As far as I know, I am the only resident that got this certified letter. I was wondering if anyone else got it besides me, because I talked to my neighbors and they don't know anything about it. I was wondering if there was more of these. And my concern is the traffic. The way I see this piece of property here, the only way out of that piece of property is either on Progress, where the Harley-Davidson dealer is, or on Park East Boulevard. There's going to be a lot of more traffic on Park East Boulevard, which is a short street, as you all know. I heard there's some talk about going all the way to 38, but that hasn't happened yet. And then coming out on Progress, I assume there's going to be an exit on Progress, where the Harley-Davidson, and that's another very short street. So I think I have a lot of concerns about traffic.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Hello. My name is Jean Esposito, and I live at 8 Kettle Circle. And it's across from, well, we're at Park East Boulevard and Kettle Circle. And this probably, I've never been to a meeting like this, so forgive me. And it probably doesn't matter, except it matters to me. I would never have bought this house. I mean, we parked and we watched the traffic. How bad is the traffic on Park East Boulevard? And if I had known there would be that many cars that were going to join the cars that were already there, I wouldn't have bought our home. I wouldn't have wanted anything to do with it. I think it's going to affect the value of our home. Also, when we moved in, there were a number of incidents. You know, I was home alone a lot, and I have a few health problems. I'm not as young as, you know, the rest of you, but I was looking, I just looked up at the birds by the feeder in the backyard, and I saw that the thing with our hose, you know, it was in one of those little boxy things, was moving all by itself. So I got up, because I have no sense, I got up and I went to investigate. And there was a man who was pulling it. You know, the door was open, the gate was open to the backyard. And I asked him what he was doing. He told me he didn't know anybody lived there, he just wanted the water. And I said, I'd like you to leave. He said, I'm not going to leave till I clean up. I said, what have you got to clean up? There's nothing to clean up. If there is, I'll handle it. I want you to leave. And he said, I'm not leaving. I got in the house and locked the door, and I tried to go out the front and get a picture of his license plate, except the way he had parked his truck, he had a pickup right up against our garage. There was no way I could do it because I was afraid. I didn't know if he would come back again or what was going on. There was a time that someone called the police and said it looked like someone was trying to break in our garage. So I have 2 police come to the front door and tell me this. And they wanted to come in the house to check the garage and make sure nobody was in there. Which, you know, but when they left, I was still nervous because you're thinking, was anybody there? Are they going to come back? There was a time where people would knock on the door where the corner house, they wanted to use the phone. I just keep thinking with all of these people and all of this traffic, am I going to go through that again, or is there suddenly going to be, I don't know. It's and I do worry about the traffic when I go down Park East Boulevard, and there's a fair amount of traffic. I keep thinking when you add hundreds of cars, what's it going to be like? And it's a real concern that I have about, pardon me for babbling. I apologize. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Mr. Riley.
A couple of comments in response. With regard to...
Oh, I'm sorry.
I also live in the neighborhood, and I just wanted to add that Mr. Esposito is correct as far as I know.
Can we have your name and address, please?
I'm sorry. Rita Singer. I'm at 232 Kettle Circle.
Thank you.
In the same development as Mr. Esposito. And I haven't talked to anybody who got a certified letter. I didn't even know he did, so that is correct, if it makes any difference.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Connie Dykstra, and I live at 323 Kettle Circle. And my thoughts on this is the traffic. It's just, there's no light or anything. There's no way to stop traffic. And if you put in 312 units, that's just going to be unreal to be able to navigate in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Now, Mr. Riley.
Thank you. Just to address a couple of points. On the notices, we've sent the notices to the people that we were required to send notices to under the ordinance. Maybe that the neighbors that didn't get them aren't within that area where we have to provide them notice. So notices were sent to who was entitled to receive them. With respect to traffic, I mean, Park East is a 4-lane road. That road was there before Kettle Circle was developed. I mean, that road provides the access to that development, so the road has been there. As part of the PD process, we meet with the city, we meet with area plan, so the city engineer has input. There were no concerns about traffic raised during those meetings, so again, request your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
Yeah, Kevin, is this a market rate?
Yes, they're market rate.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Actually, if I could, we could have, this development as planned actually meets the requirements of the underlying zone. We did a planned development because that's what the city
Right.
wanted us to do.
Right.
So I think that's important to note.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead.
I understand that Parkes, Jean Esposito again, I understand Parkes Boulevard was there before Kettle Circle, but we've lived there 14 years. We didn't move in, last fall, or 14 years we've been in that house. And this is the letter we got. And after we got the letter, my husband saw the mail person and asked her how many people in the development got a certified letter. And the person who's delivered the mail for years and is very conscientious told us we were the only house that got a letter. So did we get a letter because we're the corner house and nobody else mattered? Or I don't understand about when you talk about the people that, I don't remember the words exactly, but the mail person said this was the only certified letter she had to deliver was to us. That's not notifying people of what's going on. And people can't always at the last minute make arrangements to be here. And I think if you're doing something like this that affects everybody there that's got to get out on, that they have a right to think.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments from the commission? You have a yellow ballot.
You have a unanimous ballot recommending approval.
Thank you.
I move to hear and vote on Z 2891, Remy Mascreen, NB to R1.
David Hiddle again with the Area Plan Commission with your final zoning case of the evening. This is a request to rezone 9.5 acres, 9.52 acres to be exact, from NB, neighborhood business, to R1, single-family residential. Here you can see the site. It is snuggled up next to Mystic Woods subdivision. In fact, it's part of Mystic Woods subdivision. It's lots 3 and 4. It's undeveloped, has never been developed. It was originally zoned R1, like the surrounding area, but was rezoned to NB in 2007 with the intention of to have a Odd Fellows Hall constructed. That never happened. So this is essentially a corrective rezoning to rezone it back to R1. This is within the catchment area of the Battleground Town Plan from 1998. It's not within the boundaries of Battleground, but as is often the case, town plans, comprehensive plans might stretch their future land use maps out beyond the borders of the town, usually to correspond with potential future annexation areas. So this is within that plan, and the plan recommends low-density residential use for this property. It is not sewered or watered, so what's proposed here, corrective downzoning from NB to R1 in compliance with the plan on a lot that really cannot serve a commercial development, is in staff size appropriate, and we are supportive of this request. Would answer any questions you might have.
Does the petitioner or petitioner's representative wish to make a presentation?
No.
Okay. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this?
My name is Paul Wentold, and I live on Midnight Drive, which is part of the Mystic Woods subdivision. I'm in favor of it in principle because, no offense to the Oddfellows, I'd much prefer to have a dozen new neighbors than an IOOF fellowship hall in the back with the only access through the Mystic Woods subdivision. My only concern or question has to be, would an expansion of the subdivision size trigger any requirements involving streetlights? There are no streetlights in the subdivision, and talking to the neighbors, the HOA does not allow streetlights, and so if there were some zoning requirement for streetlights given subdivisions of X number of size, then we wouldn't be able to comply with that, and that would be my only concern about it. But otherwise, yeah, let's build out there.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak? Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Sonia Shively. I live at 6534 Midnight Drive. If you were to grant this petition to R1, they have an access drive into Midnight Drive. I think that should be denied, and they should have access to 43, because that much traffic coming onto our little subdivision would be very, very great. So I would ask if anything be done, you deny them access onto our Midnight Drive. There is a partial, if you look at the map, you see that there is a partial drive there, and you can see how large the development is, and you can see how small the drive is. And I think that would be just too much traffic on that little road for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hiddle, am I correct? We're just doing a rezone. There's no replatting or anything like that?
Correct. It's just two lots. It's just a rezoning. If there's a desire to subdivide, that would be another petition that would come.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Questions from the commission? Well, I'm being too quick tonight.
Name's Justin Dyer, 6501 Midnight Drive. I have first house on the right when you pull in. I've lived there 10 years, 11 years. When we bought, I was given a map that showed future development. It's understood, no problem with that at all. This letter that came in the mail said something about manufactured homes, trailers, something to that effect. That's my only concern about what it may do to property value, or years further down the road when the original owners move out and new people move in, what it may do to the rest of our values. My only concern.
Okay, thank you.
Rich Beecher, 6601 Midnight Drive. I would agree with him if there's manufactured homes. We don't want manufactured homes.
Anyone else? Questions for the commission? You have a yellow ballot.
Unanimous ballot recommending approval.
Thank you. There are no administrative matters. Approval of the June Executive Committee agenda. There's nothing filed there as well. Determination of variances.
I move that the following requests for variance from Unified Zoning Ordinance are not requests for use variance prohibited from consideration by ordinance and statute. That's BZA 2106, Purdue Research Foundation, and BZA 2107, Purdue Research Foundation.
I second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Director's report.
Thank you. The report was distributed this morning. I don't have anything to add, but would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the commission? Any citizens' comments or grievances? Hearing none. Mr. Schroeder.
I move to adjourn.
We're adjourned.
This will be the last meeting. No food, you're exactly right. So, do you want to go someplace else? Okay.
Yeah. And so Eric is the same.
So you guys decide, just let me know where you want to go. That's fine, just let everybody know.
This conference is no longer being recorded.